Welcome back to Cancel Weekly. We have a special Valentine's Day episode for you guys today. I'm Mickey. She's Kim. That's Candice. He's Gerard. On the special episode, we have strong women versus weak men. We have the law of attraction. We have Kevin Gates' interesting way of raising children. We have pet peeves amongst your loved ones. But first, we have the origins of Valentine's Day on the special Cancel Weekly Valentine's Day episode.
Is February the 14th, a day to celebrate love and affection with your significant other. While the origins of Valentine's Day aren't entirely clear, it is thought to date back to a Roman holiday called Lupercalia. However, it has some violent history. Lupercalia was a festival that was held in mid-February, and it was known to celebrate fertility and the coming of spring. In the 6th century BC, men would sacrifice their goats and dogs and smear the blood on children. They would then have women volunteer to be whipped as they thought it would make them more fertile. By 3rd century BC, women were held forcibly naked and they were whipped. The holiday later became associated with Saint Valentine, which was in the early Christian era. Saint Valentine was a Christian priest, and he would perform marriages illegally in a time where Roman Emperor Claudius II had banned them. Claudius II had banned marriages at the time to increase the number of soldiers in his army. Saint Valentine was eventually sentenced to death, but he became a symbol of love and devotion.
Now, Gerard, I know you love your ancient Roman history, and you're a big lover boy yourself.
And I'm all for women getting whipped on a holiday. Yeah, every seems like every one of our holidays has some sort of like dreadfully awful historical beginning, right? Like even our fairy tales are really like the Hans Christensen stuff that Disney took and made into
nursery rhymes.
Yeah, they were really, really dark.
They're pretty dark.
Yeah, like the like I believe Cinderella, the sisters had their feet cut off in the real one, and yeah, it's
wasn't the pocket full of the ashes, we all fall down. It's about everyone dying during the plague.
They had a black plague. That's right. The I don't know. But I feel like that's what would you prefer, Candice? Would you rather goat's blood and whippings or Whitman's assorted chocolates?
Well, call me a romantic, but I think that there's very special occasions reserved for whipping, and I prefer that to be done without the goat's blood.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I like the Christian version a lot better on this one.
The way Christian rips, or the way our producer?
No, the Christian version.
Oh.
Yeah, with Saint Valentine.
Christian needs to excuse himself and go to the bathroom.
Which normally I side with the pagan stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, all this witchy moon orgy stuff, sign me up. But this one, no, Team Christian on this one.
So I'm curious to what the influence or what, I don't know much about Saint Valentine. I don't know much how what the religious aspects of this. I mean, in the beginning, obviously, we know the Romans were big into sacrifices and, cutting like a lot of like that bloodletting stuff to, show their devotion.
Well, you got to understand, in the early days of Christianity, as it was becoming a thing, it was the religion, the cult or whatever of the lower class, and the lower classes and the slaves and the free slaves, they needed consent of the masters to copulate. Right, I mean, so to
have sex and make babies.
To have babies, right? And then marriage became the idea that monogamy under God, and then that's when you can have sex. You're supposed to be celibate until in the Old Testament and all that. So even all the way up until the Oliver Cromwell days of Britain, the Protestants would kill. It was illegal for Catholics in Ireland to get married and have babies, and prima nocta, one of the very famous opening scenes in Braveheart. Yep.
Come to claim the right of prima nocta. As lord of these lands, I will bless this marriage by taking the bride into my bed on the first night of her youth.
That shit makes you blood red mad watching that,
my gosh.
Huh? Mm-hmm. You know what prima nocta is, baby?
Not really.
That is when the king or the king's men get first rights at the woman. So the woman,
lord,
before she is gonna have sex with her husband, the lord or the king or whoever it is will come in and take the woman and have the first night with her himself
on her wedding night.
Her wedding night,
because they were supposed to be waiting. She was supposed to be waiting until marriage. She was supposed to be a virgin. And then the Lord would come and be like, hey,
I get
cool wedding you got here. Be ashamed of somebody.
You know the love of your life right here?
Yeah.
You can't wait to spend the rest of your life with? I'm going to go ahead and get first licks on her.
Yeah, literally, in some ways.
No wonder those Scots rose up.
Yeah, so so much of what we know as Christianity is historically skewed because it's been the predominant, the Judeo-Christian West. It's been the predominant morality and rule set for us our whole lives. But for most of Christianity's history, it's been it's kind of been something that was done in the shadows. So for someone like him, I mean, they were, that would have been, I guess, the equivalency. Like the moral equivalency would have him doing like back alley marriages back then would have been like back alley abortions today. It would have been like, you're not going to tell me who I can and can't love, or, I know that was the idea behind the ring. It started as like this idea, like it was like, hey, we only know me and you, nobody else knows. Hey, cool ring you got there. And it's like, oh yeah, I just really like wearing it. And it was the same ring as somebody else. So, yeah, I mean, love prevails in the end.
Do you believe that?
No, absolutely not. Zero chance that's true.
So are you one of these people that thinks it's just a commercialized holiday and capitalism, and what are you doing
Hallmark
that's not
holiday?
Right, you just...
That doesn't sound like me at all.
Yeah, you're not cynical.
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, do you not? I mean,
I think you can make it whatever you want to make it. So if you want to buy it wholesale and say, I'm just going to go buy all of these things and I'm not going to actually look at what it's supposed to be, which is love and connection and showing your admiration and appreciation for your partner, then you're a sucker. Don't do that. But you can turn it into what you want it to be.
My college baseball coach, this sums up, I think, how a lot of men...
I like that we're next to each other.
Oh, check it out. Yeah.
Matching colors.
My college baseball coach told us, speaking of baseball, Mick's got a baseball shirt going on here.
What team is this?
It looks like an actual baseball.
You're right.
You should buy the flowers a week before because they're half as expensive, and then you'll get some when you give her the flowers, and then a week later when you see the flowers, give her some chocolates and you'll get some again. That was my college baseball coach. That's what he thought about. That's what he thought about Valentine's Day.
No, because there's like a collective consciousness to it, right? Which is why we celebrate Christmas all together and the New Year together. So if you're separating from that, it doesn't have the same whimsy.
What is the best Valentine's Day gift you ever got?
I don't know. I don't really get Valentine's Day gifts. I don't. I get like little things that don't matter, but it's like the time spent is the thing. So it's dedicated time. And before kids, we didn't have to worry about this, but now we get a sitter, and it is our night. No phones, no like talking business. It's just connection.
I do think that as you get older, that's important, like to have those kind of like, forget-me-not moments, right?
And better sex, too, because, you're supposed to dress, that's your gift, is you dress yourself up. It's, a lot of effort. I think most women, that's what you give to the man on Valentine's Day. He goes out.
Well, it's cool, women.
Takes you to dinner, whatever, and underneath, you're supposed to have something for him.
What do you guys think about the separation of a lot of these holidays' origins from, the religious parts to today, where it's about chocolates and flowers, you know what I mean? The separation from the religious aspects, how this is very Christian based.
Keep Christ at Christmas.
That's Christmas about gifts, and you know what I mean?
I think Hegelian dialectic, Mick. I think that everything was too Judeo-Christian centric for too long, and now we're living through the pushback of it, the overcorrection of now they cut away from C.J. Stroud.
Congratulations on the win and a wild finish to this one. 2 weeks in a row, it comes down to the wire. How are you guys able to edge out the Bengals today?
I just think we're resilient. And all glory and praise have to go to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
On a post-game interview when he's thanking God. I like chocolates. I think if you like God, good for you. Anything that makes people happy, have at it. I really, I don't care. What's
Kim, you have some thoughts on God?
Tell me all your thoughts on God.
Because I'd really like to meet her.
Well, it's basically just like a thought. It's a small theory that I have. The heart, the feelings. People say the feelings you have the feelings in the mind. Other people think that you have the feelings in the heart or in the stomach, right? The Bible said the feelings are in the heart. So when you are like living your life through all this path, you have like a hole in your heart, and you try to fill this your heart with money, love, sex, drugs, alcohol, or whatever. Anything that is like that you can perceive around you, that you can make it like possible for you, let's say in this way, and make it feel it, but it's never fulfilled.
That hole in your heart.
Exactly. And this space is there because is part of our connection. So until you don't have this connection, you are not fulfilled.
You're talking about filling the holes for God?
Exactly. So when you have this connection with something that you like, well, yeah, like God, or some people doesn't believe in God but believe in something else that is not like solid in this world. Could be any religion or anything. You understand that this whole is for God, or whatever you want to call it.
Right, and if you're trying to fill it with other shit, it's just not gonna satisfy the same way.
Until that moment that you have the connection and you realize that all that, the whole life that you've been living have sense now, and it's because of that.
Interesting.
So this hole is for God, except on Valentine's Day. Then you dress up nice in that hole.
And then the hole's
for
your
me.
man.
That hole's, yeah.
What do you think about that?
So the Jamie Wheel has this concept that he calls a God-shaped hole, and it's in his book called Recapture the Rapture. And a lot of people have been talking about it. So it's the collapse of religious institutions and those communities is creating this feeling of existential angst and depression and lack of connection, lack of purpose, lack of community. And he calls it a God-shaped hole. So I think, yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think you need to believe in something bigger than yourself. And I think that when you become the most important thing, like the center of the universe, I think that's a recipe for disaster, because then it's your ego that's at the wheel and you're chasing all of those things that you said. And if you don't have a solid foundation, if you don't have like your first principles and your values and, you know, something to live for, I think that's why it's so important to have kids for a lot of people. It really forces, for a lot of people, it'll force you to think of something other than yourself, and something that will, it's the planting of the seeds of trees that you will never sit under to enjoy the shade. Like that's having kids. So doing things in, that have like a very long return.
They have something very similar in like Alcoholics Anonymous about like, I never heard the term the God-shaped hole, but you know, it's a lot with that higher power, and you know, like especially in addicts, you know, they're trying to fill it with drugs and certain things, a lack of connectivity or a lack of connection with God, and that's something that I got to check out that book to see what a God-shaped hole.
The book's called Recapture the Rapture, but he talks about a God-shaped hole. And then what's interesting with AA is the founder was actually very pro-psychedelic. So it was founded on psychedelics. So that's the one part that they haven't implemented into modern day AA, but that's kind of the last piece. And if you ask me, that's probably why so many people in AA are like, I'm 28 days sober, I'm 372 days sober. Well, you're not really. You have not relinquished the power of that thing if you're still clocking, because you're identifying as somebody that is still an addict if you're counting. Because if you're not an addict, you're not counting. I mean, I don't count the last glass of wine I had because that's not a problem for me. So it's almost like you're preemptively waiting to fall short of whatever your promise is to yourself. So I think if you were to implement some kind of psychedelic therapy with the right protocols, with a counselor, a shaman, someone that is trained to facilitate and hold space, I think that you'd be able to actually shake whatever that addictive behavior was, instead of when am I going to fall short? When am I going to lose this chip?
That's some of the stuff with like the people going to like the shamans and doing the ibogaine or the ayahuasca.
For sure.
That type of stuff. And a lot of those people who don't even do it to quit, they end up quitting like drugs and alcohol after that.
Right. And it's not anything that they're actively fighting. It's like, I no longer am that person, and you now have shifted your identity.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, we're here joined with a couple of strong women. And Gerard, I don't think we're weak men. Do you?
No.
Cool. Well, we got a clip about
chocolate. I might have a weakness for chocolate.
You might have a little bit of weakness for chocolate, especially on Valentine's Day.
I have a chocolate-shaped hole in my stomach.
You get 2 boxes of chocolate, one for her, one for me. 2 for me, 1 for you.
One of those.
Well,
Something like that.
we got strong women versus weak men.
Look, strong women intimidate weak men. That's known. Because if he was an alpha and he was in his masculine energy, pure masculine energy, not wounded energy, he would want a smart, hardworking woman on his side because she will inspire him, she'll guide him, she'll give him advice, she'll give him constructive criticism. She will be there, she'll be his rock, and together they can build. I don't want a man to sit down and watch me build and clap for me. No, I want a man to build with. So when a man is intimidated by a strong woman, he's weak. It's because there's nothing to be intimidated about. Men and women don't compete with each other, they complete each other. So I do need a man that is in his alpha and masculine, because if he's not, then I will tap into my masculine energy to basically bring that masculine energy into the relationship, because he doesn't have it. So it's so important for a man to be healed in his alpha energy, in his healed energy, for him to be able to allow the woman safely to drop into her feminine. And for her to be a little girl. And it's very important because a lot of men complain, oh, females are very masculine nowadays. Men made us become like that. Life made us become like that. But if I'm with a healthy man, I'd be a baby. I'd be a girl. I don't want to be the boss lady at home. I don't want that. I want to be a girl. I want to be taken care of.
Interesting. Candice, thoughts?
So she has this other quote from this other podcast that she did, and it was like, weak men or soft men make hard women. And I couldn't agree more. And there's a spectrum. It's not like everyone needs to be, Leonidas. That like masculinity is a spectrum, and what it looks like to provide to a woman is also a spectrum. It's not necessarily you're going to be my physical protector, or you're going to bring home 6 figures, or you have to be 6 feet tall. Like all of these weird arbitrary like measurements that we've now kind of slapped on what it means to be a man. And I think for some reason the first thought that comes into my head is Game of Thrones, because we've been rewatching that for probably like the 12th
Great
time.
program.
But there's this one character, his name is Sam, and he is
Samuel Tarly?
No. Yeah. I don't know why I said no. Yes. So he's very much what you would say is a beta, right? Like he's getting beat up by all of these men. You think that he has no value.
He's fat, goofy.
Right. He's getting picked on. But when it comes, but when he finds a woman that he loves, he shows up for her and he protects her in the way that he can. And he puts an emphasis on his mind and learning, because that's where he excels. And because he acknowledged that he's not trying to be something he's not, he uses his skill set to protect the woman that he loves. He's like, no, I'm very knowledgeable. I have this skill set of being able to read, and I love it. And I can be a healer. I can provide wisdom. And in that acceptance of his authenticity, he was able to protect the woman that he loved and his baby. So while I love everything about this clip, I think it's so important to differentiate between like what is quote alpha, because it looks different for everybody, and I think that you don't have to necessarily be this like chiseled, I'm gonna whatever, right? So it just allowing space.
Yeah, stop talking about it.
Sure hope not. Yeah, those words are getting thrown out too much. These have become platitudes in the modern vernacular. Alpha, masculine, feminine. Somewhere along the line, women have been either taught, maybe you want to blame college, maybe you want to blame fourth wave feminism, whatever it is, where being aggressive is the same thing as being strong. Mm-hmm. Those are two different things. Mm-hmm. Being the aggressor, being an instigator, being an antagonist is not strength. Weakness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not strength.
Usually the loudest guy in the room is the weakest guy in the room.
Sure. He's got
to buff up, put up some bravado so no one fucks with him.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Patience, sometimes discretion is a better form of valor. Picking your battles, fight, there's real strength in that to controlling your emotions. And that's something even I didn't understand in younger years. You see a challenge and you think a man has to answer every challenge. And sometimes, the real challenge is within yourself to maintain your composure, to maintain your emotions, to maintain your patience. And with this kind of new generation, whatever, Gen Z, however you want to call it, I think a lot of women view being antagonistic as being strong. And that's where I think this kind of confusion is coming. Mm-hmm. I think that it's almost like a semantics problem. And you don't, and this is a very like American thing. You don't see this. I don't see it anyway in other countries with other women where the gender roles are more clearly defined and there doesn't seem to be this competition.
More traditional gender roles.
More traditional, but also at the same time, like I hate that whole trad pill
that's
thing
also
too.
that it has its own room to be debunked. So what we call traditional is actually pretty new. Like that's modern. So before we outsourced everything and we took people out of the home and we started making like goods and services outside of the farm, the roles weren't clear cut. It wasn't like she has the children and I'm gonna go into the
no, it was all hands on deck.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So this idea of trad is not like that's new. That's the experiment we're playing with.
What does trad stand for?
Traditional.
But it basically kind of is like the white picket fence, bake pies. It's the kind of like the
right, that 1950s.
Yeah, the glory years
fence.
Post World War II.
When your husband
euphoria.
comes home from work, make sure
how to make a roast.
You still had head and master laws in most of the states, so it was like there were certain.
I don't know what a head and master law is.
You really don't?
No.
The audience does. Thanks, Don.
Sorry, guys. I know a lot, but
so certain things like opening a bank account, opening up a credit card account, access to contraception, if that was on the table, like your husband had to sign for you as a woman. You had no rights. So a lot of the stuff was given to the
well,
men.
in fairness,
this was until
these
the
dizzy
70s.
dames. Well, once a month, these dizzy dames can't be trusted.
Some of this was until the 70s. So like we have this idea of romanticizing the past and looking at it with a lens of nostalgia instead of saying there was some really dicey stuff. I mean, in North Carolina, it's still in our law where you can, I think, one day a month bring your wife to the courthouse steps and beat her with something. As long as the rule of thumb. North Carolina still has it. I would pretty much guarantee if you
North
did it, you'd be in
Carolina
trouble.
real estate after this episode.
You and Eric should go give that a try. See what happens. Just, you know what
Film
I mean?
it? Yeah.
It's smaller than my thumb.
Note to self, buy as much North Carolina
trouble.
real estate as possible.
There are a lot of military boys.
The rule of thumb, my thumb is very thick. Is that the same as anybody else's thumb?
Yeah, my thumb's double the size of Kim's, so...
But anyways, like tradition, you have to kind of look at it with a grain, or like
I like the term you used before. It's modernity, right? Like it's the idea of again, and a lot of this goes back to, we talked about it a couple episodes back. This is kind of a push to decentralize, right? Like, because back in the day, it wasn't just one woman in the house doing everything. Your mother, you'd be in the same house, the same farm, the same complex.
There were ghost weddings.
What's ghost weddings?
So ghost weddings, and this challenges the idea of monogamy. So, and what is, quote, trad. Marriage wasn't about love. It wasn't about securing like who's the dad. It was about like financial security for the family. So you almost looked at the woman as like a cow that you were going to trade for security. So, for example, someone could be dead, but if it created an alliance with a certain family that would bring prosperity or security to you, then you would do that. So, like, ghost weddings were allowed.
I don't totally understand ghost weddings. It sounds almost like an arranged marriage, but with someone who doesn't exist.
Right. So it's almost like an allegiance. I don't know if Christian can Google it really quick, but yeah, ghost weddings were a thing. You would have multiple wives to like one guy if you're trying to get rid of some daughters. Like, all of this is a big experiment. So to pretend that there's like one clear-cut way it's not true.
Right.
Right. It wasn't I Love Lucy. That was not the reality. You also had what were they called? Like the frigid mom, like the freezer box moms, or the like that whole idea of calling a woman frigid was because the women were taking out so many pills because they were so miserable, right? And then a lot of the financial resources were getting allocated to the father. So even though they had the white picket fence, he was using most of it to live his lifestyle, and the mom and the kids were kind of getting like the short end of the stick.
So I've been seeing a lot of people talk, like women talking about coming out of their masculine era into their feminine era, and usually it's brought on by like having a good partner who they're able to kind of make that shift with. But I don't totally understand. I mean, what does that look like from a female perspective?
I think everyone has different needs, right? We all have our different wounds from childhood and the way that we were raised, where we were raised, how we were bullied, like what do we need? It's like very rarely do you have two fully actualized individuals that find each other and they just are thriving. Usually it's my deficits or my weaknesses, like you are a really great supplement for that, and vice versa, right? So it's like two incomplete, kind of broken people come together and find healing in that relationship. And it's not to it's not like you're leaning on your person as a crutch. It's almost like they provide a mirror for you, and then the idea is that you can kind of grow and ascend together, and then you work your way up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you're trying to get to self-actualization. And I think that that's what partnership can do to you. So for everyone, it's going to be different, and that's why these like mass generalizations of what is masculine and what is feminine, it's going to look like something different to everybody.
I think like when people say alpha and beta and all these energies, it's not just about gender. It's like more like the kind of environment where I'm moving and where you giving me and what I'm giving you. Yeah, it's good. Like I'm totally agree with what you are saying right now. And I think that Sarah she is a great girl mindset. Like her mindset is very expanded, and all these things that are happening right now, that the women are very strong and they want to talk and they have a voice, is because was oppression at certain point. How you was saying about you have to follow this paper that you like the society or man and woman has to. And basically.
Yeah, but let me push back on that a little bit, because I think a lot of that is also just what we're taught also. If you're a woman and you're only ever showed you being oppressed in the kitchen, barefoot, then that's going to have an impact on you in your formative years, saying that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be that woman. I
agree with you on that, because I think there's almost like a look down on like, oh, you just married someone and you don't you're not in the workforce and not doing this and doing that, when that's fine for some people.
Fine. It's the most important job in the world. What job is more important than raising your family?
I couldn't agree with you more. So and it's bullshit that it's being looked down upon.
I think it's more than bullshit. I think it's nefarious. I think that there's
it's a psyop.
I think that there is a perverse profit incentive into forcing people to have to both work 40 plus hours a week in order to then afford just to live an everyday lifestyle. And then your kids,
they can take the mind of the kid over.
Who's raising your kids?
Exactly.
Who are you leaving your kids with?
Yeah.
The kid, you're leaving with the kids, with the people who say, hey, you're oppressed. It's the same thing. I think when you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, you see black people who have grown up in middle class, quote unquote, white neighborhoods their whole life, and they've gone to quote unquote, white schools, and they go to Ivy League schools or great colleges, and then they're working in the workforce, but they feel like, they've been oppressed, or like they're somehow, lesser or second citizen, because that's it. They've been told their whole life, the whole world's against you, everything's against you, no matter what you do. Somebody else is getting something you're not. You're the angel, they're the demons. Eventually, you're going to internalize that.
Sure.
Right? And then all it takes is if you're in a situation where there was real oppression, or maybe there wasn't, maybe it's just the fact that life, to your point, is fucking messy. All right? And your parents got into a fight when you were a kid, and your mom was yelling at your dad, and she got under his skin the way that women know how to do more than anybody else on earth. They know exactly what button to push, and he went nuclear and said, well, I make the money, so I make the rules, and this is what we're doing. And you heard that and said, fuck that, never me. I'm going to make the money. But then what you didn't have, as you sit there at 35 years old, thinking about how you would never let a man talk to you the way that mom talked to your mother, you don't have the house and the family and the husband and the kids that your mother had also. Right. So there's
the biological rewards from having a family and having that type of stuff.
And then, what I really feel bad about for women in particular is that I am personally ashamed of the human being I was when I was 25 years old. I look back at the person I was when I was 25 years old, and people thought I was the fucking man. I'm fucking the number 2 baseball prospect in Jersey, pro ball, blah, blah, blah. I thought about the type of guy that I was, and I look back at it with nothing but fucking shame. I was a gross human being. I was horrible to every woman I fucking met. I was selfish with my family. I was selfish with my time. I was horrible. If I had lived that type of life, but I had been a female, I don't know the decisions that I would have made that would put me in a position where I'd be my age right now, staring down a biological clock and just be fucking terrified, bitter, furious with everything. Because there's
that's an interesting perspective.
Because I look at it like, man, I've wasted 10 plus years of my life now, And I look at it and I say, man, I didn't realize I wanted a family. I didn't realize I wanted kids until maybe a year ago. And if I was a woman, I'd be knocking. I'd be. I don't even know. I'd be. The biological clock would be ticking like fucking the clock in Hook. Yeah, it would be like bong bong, and I would have so much stress. I have stress as it is. You know, and I'm a man.
From like a biological clock standpoint.
From the perspective of I want to have kids, and now I'm starting to feel like two different things. I want my parents to stay alive, to see my children. I feel a great deal of stress with that. And then I also starting to do the math, and I'm like, fuck, man, am I going to be throwing batting practice at 70 years old? I don't know how much GH in the world there is for something like that. I don't know how that works.
We could get you on a good program.
Yeah,
get you on a good program.
And this is not like, feel bad for me. I'm talking about it from a perspective of, and I'm still a man, and I still have time.
Sure.
And if I were not a man and I was trying to course correct this late in my life, there would be a remarkable amount of stress. Remarkable.
This is a nice juxtaposition from hearing you rail about women being able to vote yesterday.
Actually.
You don't want women voting?
How much time you got, Candice?
It's a Valentine's Day episode.
We'll put a pin in this one.
Not without their husband's permission.
Oh, God.
Listen, there was so many transitions for the final two clips. We're just going to hop right into the law of attraction.
If you believe in the universal law of attraction, because if you don't, you're about to. Because I never believed in any of that spiritual mumbo jumbo until one day I found a law in the physical universe. It's called constructive interference. And it says that when two wavelengths of equal length meet, the size of the frequency doubles. But what this means is that you can get energy from conversation. You can get energy from the people around you, or they can take energy away from you. And so I started to go down this spiritual rabbit hole, and I found a research project called the Spain Scale of Emotion, SPANE. Researchers were able to take 25,000 subjects and put them in a room, and they were able to measure the frequency leaving the human body. And do you know what the most powerful frequency to leave the human body is? Frequency of authenticity. Authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful than love. Do you know when authenticity happens? Authenticity happens when your words are truthful and you believe what you're saying.
I love that clip. A big part of what we're doing here, what we've been doing with Slick and Thick, what we've been doing with Cancel Weekly, what we're doing with Chatting with Candice, is being authentic, being genuine, being real, having real conversations, and putting power to truth. And right here, it's showing the power of truth. You know when you're around someone who's pretending to be something they're not, like it stinks. Mm-hmm. Like you can smell it on them. It's almost like they have a bad odor. You don't want to be around them. You get weird feelings from their energy. Mm-hmm. But then when you're with someone who's authentic and is true and is their real self, kind of like you were talking with Samuel Tarly back to Game of Thrones, when he was living his truth. He knew what he was special at, and he did that. Mm-hmm. He wasn't trying to act like a big tough guy and showing bravado and stuff. He knew that wasn't his bag. So when someone's being real and genuine, that's one of the best things. And now you're seeing, based on that science, that there's more to it. And that wavelength, you can help other people, and we can power up those wavelengths and get a lot of energy from that.
Okay, agreed. However, it's been my experience with women, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this.
That they're bad voters?
Goes without saying. But it's been my experience. If you cry in front of your girlfriend or something like that, your relationship is over. And they did a ton of research on it, and they had these women, and they were like, what they thought about the dude, and they were like, oh, that's so cute, wow, he's really. But then what they were really saying was like, I don't want to fuck him. So like, you could be real, you could be authentic, but it seems like that's sort of like, if you're vulnerable, I see you shaking your head, but if you see it, if that vulnerability can sometimes be hard to recover from.
But I think there's a difference between being a bitch, and obviously I'm gonna get the female perspective on this one. But I think there's something where if you're like, it's so hard for me, I'm having such a hard time. But if you're like emotionally moved by something and cry, I don't think that's the same. I'm gonna let you guys, ladies, take this one.
All right. I think cry is something natural. Everyone has to do it. It's like a way to clear the body, the soul, actually. I don't think it's bad when like in a relationship, your husband or your boyfriend or your brother cries next to you, I think is one of the most wonderful things that could happen, because we've been talking about oppression. So if we are in the side of the men right now, they have been in oppression that way too. Like they can express their feelings, they can cry, they can say that they feel pain or stuff like that. I think
we have to put up like a strong front.
Yeah, like a mask. Like not, we are always great and we are always powerful and strong. And I think it's necessary express yourself.
That vulnerability.
Open yourself makes I don't know, maybe involve the other person and feel more empathy with you than you just save everything for yourself. And because we don't gonna understand what is happening with you if you don't like express what is happening. Like I can feel empathy for you if you have a wall between us.
Right. If you're putting up a front, putting up a wall, trying to act like you're something that you're not, kind of going along with that genuinity.
Exactly. Candice.
So they did this study where they were asking, can we make people fall in love with each other? Two total strangers. Can it happen? And what they did is they had a list of, I believe, 30 questions, and each question got more and more vulnerable and more intimate. And basically it was, I'm going to share something and now you're going to one-up that. And you continue down this line of 30 questions, and by the end of it, the answer was yes, is you can make two total strangers fall in love. So if you can do that with someone you've never met and you're not asking, you're not actually trying to find out if you're a good match, it's literally just an experiment, then absolutely you need to be able to express that vulnerability if you want to be able to go as deep as you possibly can with somebody. And then with crying, I totally agree that it's necessary, that everyone needs to do it. And it creates oxytocin when you have tears fall down your eye. Some people in the spiritual communities will say that they're actually looking at the crystalline structures of tears and they have healing properties for whatever it is that is hurting you. So they say that if you actually drink your own tears, it's supposed to have a very cathartic effect for your soul, for your spirit, for more mystical healing.
What if you drink the tears of your enemies?
No, they say don't do that. They're for yourself. That's why they kind of drip down and go into your mouth.
Can you explain what is catharsis?
Relaxing, calming.
The purification
Healing.
Of the feelings.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, it's natural to poop also. I don't think it's good for your relationship to do it in front of somebody.
Have a baby with someone, and when you see him cry when that baby's coming out, it is like there's nothing better. I'm not what a little bitch.
Acceptable. That's acceptable.
I think when there's different types of crying. I think there's
whimpering,
whining, crying. Like if you're like, man, they're being mean to me, or man, we don't have money, or that type of, that's weak shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's bitch shit. But if you're if you lose a family member, or you know what I mean, or if you're moved by a song or something like that, you know what I mean, that's more soulful.
Yeah.
And I know as a kid, I remember I had pride in the fact that I'd never cried. Never cried. Because I was if I saw someone crying in school, I was like, that kid's a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
He's a baby. You know what I mean? And that's kind of something that we're taught. And it's almost like I've effectively stuffed my emotions and almost turned that side off of me for a while. And it's something that I'm trying to only thing that would get me sometimes is music. I could be moved by music in the car, and you know what I mean? It was something that would hit me. But I don't think that's the way. I think it's braver to cry and to be in touch with your emotions and to be able to do that. And that's something I'm working to try and do a better job of.
And also, do you want a woman that because she sees you expressing yourself, that she is so scared and terrified because she has her own baggage that is overpowering that relationship, that she now blames you for being a human? Like maybe,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Like maybe
That's a good
she needs
point.
to do some
But
inner
that's an
work as well.
overwhelming majority of these people cannot. It seems like anyway. You almost can never let down the front. You always
Well, then
have,
find someone that you can be yourself with.
Exactly. It might be a
That's
blessing
the
in
thing.
disguise.
But that being said, I would like to see some sort of return to some sort of stoicism, right? Like, I mean, like everything is. Well, the way that made me feel is my thoughts on this are, and and then just like love bombing and the empathy, and then I come here, I hear you, you are listened, and you are shut.
There's
up,
a
dude.
lot of bitch assness out there,
Dude. Yeah,
and yeah, there needs
like if
to
your
be
baby, if
the-
your baby's being born and you're crying, God bless, bro.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, if it's like, you said you'd call and it just really hurt my feelings.
Those are
because-
two totally different things. Yeah, if that was the kind of crying, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Them closed her business. Bye bye.
The walls are
Excuse me. You're in your feminine right now,
Snapshot.
and I'm gonna need you to get in your masculine, or I'm gonna get in my masculine and peg you. So
Yeah.
that's a thing that's become like everybody talks about pegging now. I didn't even know what pegging was until like 3 years ago. I think
same.
people got really bored during lockdowns.
I think, yeah, like people are turning into cats, and
Yeah.
kids in school are identifying as cats.
Star
and
crazy.
need to be treated as such.
First off, we have the normal meow that we just use mostly to get each other's attention. Meow.
No!
Okay, then we have the dissatisfied meow.
No!
Then the angry meow, but we only use this one on rare occasions because overall we're a very happy kid and family.
No! God, please, no! And yeah, a lot of pegging. I guess that must have to do with the masculine and feminine energies, a little topsy-turvy. You know what
There's
I mean?
a great comedian
Topsy-turvy.
the great comedian Dave Landau, our buddy with Normal World. He does a whole bit on how his friend's kid said that he was a cat, and like it's something they were doing in school. And I don't want to steal Landau's bit. Check out Dave Landau. He's one of the funniest men in America. But he does this whole bit of I'm like, oh, you're a cat, okay. Grabs the kid, throws him out. You're an outside cat. Good luck. They start knocking on the door in like 30 seconds. It's cold. I can't understand you. You're a cat.
You know what? I just thought of something before too. Do you remember on one of the early episodes we were talking about pulling the thumb, and it was supposed to kind of like relieve anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
My cousin Caitlin, shout out Biff, who just had a baby, by the way. She was telling me that, do you ever notice when kids cry, they'll be upset and they go, that double breath.
Mm-hmm.
That double breath is also a good thing to do to relieve anxiety. It's like a natural thing that children do when they cry to kind of like calm themselves down. So if you're feeling like anxiety and feeling like angst or worried or stress, you can kind of do hit like a little double breath, and that'll help calm you down a little bit. Just want to throw that out to the fans out there who are maybe a little cry whiny bitches. You know what I mean?
They don't watch this show. We got alphas only.
We got alphas
Cancel
in
weekly.
here. Alpha wolves.
Alphas
baby.
in their
Let's
masculine.
go. Yeah.
So hot.
Well, we were talking a little bit about children throughout this episode, and Kevin Gates has some interesting philosophies.
I just whooped my son the other day for interrupting us while we was doing prayer. You not about to disrespect nothing. And yeah, man, why you whooping you? I'm gonna beat my son ass.
You damn right.
You know why? Because if I don't whoop his ass in the house, when he get out there, the police gonna blow his little brains out and they gonna be picking him up off the ground.
How old is your
So
son?
I'm gonna whoop his ass. He 1.5. He about to be 2. So I discipline my children. If you don't like it, take me to jail. But I discipline both of them because they will respect you. They don't have to say yes sir, no sir to me, but any other adult, yes sir, no sir. That's how you gonna rock.
You know, little Kevin Gates Jr. crawls into the room and is like, Dad, and he's like, shut up, little motherfucker. I want my baba. Shut up. 1.5, huh?
That's so gross. That's so gross.
I think that's a little early.
18 months?
18 months, and he's like,
Can you say yes sir, no sir at 18 months?
Yeah.
You gonna learn today.
No, you can't say yes or no, sir. He's full of shit. He's obviously not parenting.
This hits you pretty hard.
I am so anti hitting your kid. There are probably very extreme circumstances. I don't know. I'm not for it. I don't think that it's going to help them with anything. I think that they're little, their brain's not done. It's your job to show them emotional regulation, how to work through their feelings, problem solving, how to do the right thing. If they're like 16 and maybe like your 16-year-old's popping off or like, pushing mom or something, then for sure, dad, get in there and rock that kid. But like a baby, a child, no. I think teenager, those are different rules, especially for a boy.
Yeah, I think 1.5 is crazy.
Especially use the word whoop. Like how are you
like,
whooping a 1.5?
I gotta yeah. I don't know. That part is crazy, but I do think it is an interesting topic because, and I think I like that the way you said. Maybe if you're a teenager and you're getting in your mom's face or cursing your mother out, you need to be taught some respect
for sure.
And I know were you hit as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad.
So I know. Like, one of the deterrents for doing wrong when I wasn't, maybe you don't know, you think something's fun or you think, I didn't want that teacher to call my house because my dad was gonna make it a real bad day for me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get hit if that teacher calls home. If I don't get home first and delete that message, you know what I mean?
Totally.
I'm gonna get whooped.
I was the same way, but it did set a weird precedent because one day
I became
the
bigger
whooper.
than your pops.
And does that mean I'm in charge now?
Nah, I think that you got to have some respect, and I've been hearing a lot of things where they talk about don't be your kid's best friend. You know what I mean? I've been hearing a lot of that. Be your kid's best friend when your kid's 25, 30, but you need to be a parent as you grow up. You need to I don't like the word rear them. But you need to, you know what I mean? You need to help develop them into a productive member of society who understands, sometimes you got to be hard on them and you got to do certain things.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson talks about that all the time. You can be a parent or you can be a friend, and if you're doing one or the other, you're not doing either well,
Yeah.
He's really big though into discipline, and I think
physical.
I have never heard him say anything about physical discipline, but I know that he's said that for punishment he's put his kids in a room, like locked them in their room and alone. And
that sounds like a psychological problem then.
Right. So do you know who Gabor Mate is? So him and Peterson have some beef, and he's done a lot of work on trauma, addiction, ADD, and he says that ADD is a trauma response for a lot of people. So if you're a little kid and you're in an abusive situation, and sometimes isolation when you're little, like we've never done like a timeout, but if my oldest has ever thought he was by himself for a minute, like if I went to the bathroom and he like didn't hear me say I'm going to the bathroom, it is the most terrifying, devastating thing for him, and he'll like run through the house and I'm like, I'm in the bathroom, but he's like, for a moment it is the end of his world. So you can see you're not hitting him, but they're little creatures, they're not done yet, so the way that things process for them are very different. But so if you have a kid and they're getting abused, they can't fight back, they can't run away, so the only thing that they can do is go inside. And then what is ADD? It's zoning out. You're going inside into your own world, so it's an escape mechanism that we create. So Gabor Mate, this is not my words, Gabor Mate has kind of hinted in his most recent book, I can't remember, it's something like something normal, I don't know if Christian can look it up, but he's kind of said that a lot of Michaela's health stuff is parenting related.
That's a hell of an accusation.
I'm not making it. It's been pointed out in his book. So he.
You're saying that guy made a hell of an accusation.
But that's a remarkable accusation to make.
Fucking A, it is.
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, there's a lot of work that says that trauma shows up in the body as illness. That is getting more and more widely accepted. So my point is like you can physically discipline a kid, you can psychologically discipline a kid, and sure, maybe you're going to teach them what your version of, quote, respect is, even though I would challenge that that's not respect. But then you're going to have someone that potentially has autoimmune issues, potentially is sick, doesn't trust the world, can't develop healthy attachments with anyone, creates all of these outer shells because the world is now unsafe. I can tell you, I got I have had bleach poured on me. You know what I mean? Wow. As like a punishment. Yeah.
What does that feel like?
terrible, it's bleach. You know what I mean? Like it burns. So.
Well, that's abuse. There's a difference
For
between
sure.
discipline and abuse,
That was
right?
what I was saying. Differentiating between
when you're
getting hit
when
and
you're
getting
super
abused.
little, you are not differentiating. You're not differentiating. Your parent
Just
is
know it's pain.
is God. That is your world. That is the person that you love more than anything, that is supposed to protect you and guide you and teach you. And then you have like this schism that's created because this thing that you think is perfect and all knowing, all loving, all everything, then turns around and whacks you. You don't have an executive function yet when you're that little. You don't have it till you're 25. So there is no space between think, say, or think and do. It's just that it is a one fluid thing. So to punish them, instead of explaining to them,
How do
we're
you
giving
punish
them,
your kids?
we don't. Like that's the thing. There is
you
no
don't.
punishment. Like it's like you explain to them what's happening, right? Like
You
certain
say
things
this
aren't
is wrong. Or,
right. And if something happens, like I have 2 boys and they're already wrestling, so that's not what we do. If my oldest gets too rough with him, we explain to him like his job.
Do you think that'll change or
for sure? And
over time?
you should
like the
be
more aware they become, the more responsible they are for their actions.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then maybe the more discipline / punishment that could be deserved.
Punishment is a weird one. Discipline, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Punishment, I don't know. You'd have to like try to convince me. Because that just seems like getting even. It doesn't seem like trying to better them or try to teach them.
Isn't that the whole idea of jail?
I don't agree with jail.
Yeah.
And for most of people, I don't think most people should be in jail. Like you're putting a human in a box.
Yeah.
What are you talking
agree.
about? And then you're making money off of putting a person in a box.
That's a whole different
we
thing.
could get-
That's crazy.
Agreed with you, but okay. So you have children. I don't. What accountability mechanisms do you use?
So you want to have internal motivators. You don't want it to be fear-based or external. You want them to, like, this is your brother. You love your brother. You should want to protect your brother. How does this make you feel? How do you think this makes him feel? It's making him want to do the right thing.
You're in a public
he's little.
setting. You're in a restaurant. They're being loud. They're
They
acting
don't.
out. Well,
And
you got
that's
great
my
kids,
point.
but other-
It's yes, I have great children, absolutely, but also like I'm going to take half the credit here for parenting, and my husband should take half the credit for parenting, right? It's we explain the way that you behave in public, and then we'll leave. If it hasn't happened, but like if you're gonna act a fool at the restaurant, then we're gonna get up and go. It's not like I'm gonna whack you. That's not solving anything.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the idea that life is a traumatic experience, right? So this idea of like the rest of the world is not going to be as patient, is not going to be as kind. Is there something that you have to do to help them understand that the world is a rough place?
Well, for sure, and that's going to come with development. So there's this saying, and a lot of like military guys use it. It's so words with words, hands with hands, tools with tools, and that is something that we do teach him. So like if he goes and whacks his brother, I mean, it's going to sound crazy, but the 1.5-year-old already hits back, and I let that happen. That's not me hitting it. That's rules of engagement. You just hit this person, and what reality is going to happen in the real world is you're probably going to get popped back, and then he'll look at me like, "Why aren't you stopping the babies?" Well, you just hit the baby. Right? So it's different. I'm not saying I'm not trying to put him in a bubble at all. That's not what I'm doing. And again, like if he's a teenager and he's doing something wild, then absolutely different rules. But we're talking about small children.
No, I'm not trying to advocate for you to hit your kids. I'm just trying to understand your perspective. I think what he's doing is I'm hoping he's misquoting himself. I'm hoping that he's trying to say something to sound cool or sound, that he's instilling discipline in his kids. I'm hoping that he's kind of fronting, because if he's hitting his 1.5-year-old kids, he's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, I think we can all agree with that.
For sure.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I don't think because of, the outlier of him being a monster necessarily, but also I don't have kids, so I guess we'll use you and your kids as a
Well, I hope you don't
canary in the coal
your
mine.
children.
I think something you said also was that I had heard that made sense to me is how it could be. I've heard from psychologists how it could be very difficult when your kid looks to you for love and protection. Meanwhile, is also their worst enemy at times. If they're beating your ass, you know what I mean? It could be very conflicting and difficult for a child to psychologically take on. So hearing that. It does change my perspective on it a little bit.
They just don't need it is the point. The easy thing would be to whack them. That's the quick, easy fix, right? Like their body knows pain. Don't do that again. But are they really understanding the message? And then what more damage are you creating? It's not like you're solving a problem. You're creating a new one. So if you want to parent and you want to parent well, it's a lot of work. And it takes a lot of reparenting yourself because so much of what ticks you off about your kid is probably what ticked your parent off when you were a kid and you probably got whacked, which is probably why you want to whack them. So you can decide to keep that pattern going and do the lazy thing, which is to just whack them and fix the behavior that you don't like, or you can teach them to be a better person and want to be a strong man when he grows up and want to protect his brother and his family and want to stand up for someone and want to consider someone else on the plane seat behind them because they have empathy and they're like, I wouldn't want to be interrupted while I'm reading my book, right? Like it's these things instead of, oh, I don't want to get yelled at, right? Like which one do you want their inner dialogue to be? And that's the difference, in my opinion. I mean,
I almost feel like when you're young, it almost like it converges where you realize maybe I'm not doing this because I don't want to get in trouble, and then you realize I'm not doing this because it's not right. It's not nice to do to someone else. It's not, you know what I mean? Where you have that when you have that perspective, so to speak. What do you think, Kim? You have any thoughts on this?
It's really hard. I don't know. I don't have kids, but I had to raise my cousins in my family since I was a child, and sadly, in my family, we had like a lot of, people that smack you and stuff like that. That was naturally in my family. So I think in one side it's like really bad because that is really like a trauma, and you have to bring that whole your life because you feel scared of doing anything, and how Mickey was saying, and that makes your ability to express or to make connections with other people, they are affected because of that. I think love, now that we are in the Valentine's Day, love is definitely like a really huge, important tool to rise any kind of relationship. And it's necessary and important. And yeah, definitely like hit people or more is not the best option. I thought that was, but definitely it's not.
You thought it was?
No, yeah. For a moment, I thought like, this little baby or this teenager is screaming or is like a fault of respect or. But it's because you have this kind of ideas that you are bringing from your ancestors or your family or the place where you grow up.
So has Candice just kind of changed your perspective on it a little bit?
Yes, actually, she's
I'm
doing.
so glad I said something.
but I'm not ashamed of saying, she's like changing my perspective because I think it's good to have your mind open and expanded. If you are thinking about how you're gonna raise your child one day, you have to for sure learn about like all the places you've been around and see what makes you feel comfortable to raise your children in the future because they're gonna be the people who make actions in the future that can change something.
Right.
For something different, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like what you do is, takes more work, and that's noble and it's worth it. You know what I mean?
That's the whole point. You know what I mean? It is a really hard job. And I saw this quote and it said, being a toddler is a thankless job. And it's so good. And I thank my toddler several times a day because he is always teaching me more about myself and always like demanding me to be a better person and a better mother and even a better wife. Like these like small beings have a way of just like radically changing everything as you know it. And again, I get it. I understand whacking your kid. But I'm challenging you. There's another way, a more impactful way, and something that's not going to be left with like you wondering if you did the right thing and then you paying for their therapy sessions when they're 20. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I think the emotional intelligence for a father or mother is very important, and that's gonna change the life of the kid forever. The actions maybe gonna be even easier. Improve yourself like a person when you grew up in like this kind of environments. Yeah. What do you think, Gerard? How you want to raise your children?
Yeah, I don't ever think that hitting your kids should be the way that you raise your kids. But I also think spare the rod, spoil the child in some instances. I really do. I think that in a very very extreme setting, right? There just has to be. If somebody continues to be disrespectful, if somebody continues to, and I agree, at some point before you get to that level, there should be some sort of internal audit on what am I doing incorrectly? How can I be better? You have to exhaust as many of these options as possible, but at the same time, if you and again, it's not a kid thing. I think it's much more of a teenage. It's kind of like, as the horse is the stallion is starting to become wild. When it's a feral animal, there has to be some sort of regimental understanding of like when they start feeling like, we could talk about the alpha, whatever. They're coming of their time. They're coming of their age. They are the alpha, and you need to command a certain level of respect.
So when do you think is a good moment to do it?
I don't think that there's a good moment. I think there's no winner in that situation. I think that if that situation happens, it's kind of like a DEFCON red situation. And all I'm saying more than anything else is I don't think that it should be the style. I'm not saying we should go back to the whole Irish Catholic hit first, stay quiet later type thing, and then internalize it through years of alcoholism and abuse. But it doesn't necessarily have to be off the table completely, is what I'm saying. There's a huge breakdown somewhere if it happens, but sometimes, man, shit happens when people are, if familiarity breeds contempt. I don't care how much you love anybody, how much you're with somebody. If you're with somebody every day for 20 years, there's going to be disagreements, arguments, sometimes escalation. And yet, if you are in a position where your conflict resolution skills are not where they need to be, then this can be a useful thing, right? Because you can't just be a pushover. You can't just let poor things keep happening. And I'm not saying that getting a rap, helped me or whatever, but it definitely stopped me from doing dumb shit. And it's not ideal, but also I fucked around and I found out. There's a big, big, big difference between abuse and discipline. And for me, it comes from intention, right? If someone's drinking and they hit you, that's a hard stop, red flag, right? If you did nothing to antagonize, hard stop, red flag. But also at the same time, like the bending kids over their knee, that whole trope, probably don't need to do. Save that one for the wife on Valentine's Day.
All right, we got our funny clip here. We got some pet peeves coming up.
What is something your wife freaks out on you about that you think they should just stay in their lane?
Breathing. Chewing. Like, I'll be chewing with my mouth closed, and it's just because I'm chewing a loud food item. And it's just loud.
Guy's a handsome bastard is what he is.
Mad, even though my mouth is completely closed.
Dude, I'm in the same scenario.
We're just gonna have to start crushing up our food and snorting it. But then that'll be annoying because our noses are making noises.
You're gonna have to go into the garage.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
Into a smoothie and then drink it from a straw, and then when you get to an inch, you can't finish the smoothie. Otherwise,
that blender is gonna be an issue.
There's a lot of foods I'm banned from eating in the bedroom. Cereal is one of them.
Cereal. What else?
Trail mix is another one. Especially almonds. Chips is obviously another given. Crackers Cracker Jacks the other night. We just had an old bag of Cracker Jacks. Well, I was trying to clean out the snack cupboard. I'm like, well, someone's got to get rid of this.
Was there a decoder ring in the
Who's
bottom of the
got
box?
Well, I didn't get that far because I didn't get to the bottom. I got one handful in, and she's like, you got to leave.
You're like, I didn't get to the bottom of it.
You know what? I'm going to do something I never do, and I'm going to side with the women here. There should be no eating in the bedroom. What are you doing? Keep them crumbs out.
Oh, that's really hypocritical coming from you, Jay.
Well, no, you can eat as part of like a sexual fetish thing in the bedroom. You could play you can play hide and seek with Pop Rocks. That's a lot of fun. But I'm not. Don't lay down in the bed, throw on Amazon Prime, and open up some fucking Cracker Jacks. That's what kind of monster is that? That kid should have been hit. You give whoever opens up the Lay's, the Doritos, and is eating them in their bed at 16. You give them a little rap, and we could have figured that one up quick.
I was gonna ask Candice what her pet peeves are, but Eric's not here to defend himself. So why
it's definitely true. It's his eating. I fucking hate his eating, and it takes me every ounce of self-control not to yell at him every time we eat. He keeps his mouth open because he wasn't raised with manners, and he just sloshes his food, and then he thinks he'll argue. He's like, my mouth is closed. I was like, I'm gonna get video footage because it's absolutely not. So I have to put music on, or I have to focus on if we're watching a movie while we eat. I have to watch that. Like it gives me a lot of anxiety, a lot.
Women have hated the way I've snored forever. And I can't, and it bothers me so much because I can't do anything about it. It's like I'm asleep. I'm not trying to snore. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
It's too big.
Like, you're like,
yeah, you poor guy's choking it.
My ex used to hold my nose. I'm like, you're trying to kill me. She's like, I'm just trying to stop you from snoring. I'm like, that's murder. You're trying to murder me.
Anyone you cohabitate with needs earplugs. you just need to invest in like a gallon-sized bag of earplugs and just
noise cancellation headphones.
Yeah, or earplugs. Can't be rolling.
I've thought about the mouth teeth, but I think I will die.
I think he'll die.
Yeah, I've thought about that. I'm thinking about like driving around with it and stuff like that. I made it like I bought it and I made it like to the end of the block, and I'm like, I'm gonna cause an accident.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Is it you're like Tony Soprano in the car about
Yeah. Let's hope I'm not James Gandolfini.
What kind of pet peeves do you have, Kimberly? You can put me on blast if you want. Actually, never mind. I changed my mind. Fuck that.
I'm gonna say one, but I love you so much. Well, one that it's like kind of disgusting, but I don't know. It's like you see the person and you love it, but at the same time, it's like something is happening, but you still loving him. Is when he is like doing nicotine.
What I'm doing right now?
You understand why?
Because, why? 'Cause I'm spitting in this bottle over here?
Yeah, and he brings the bottle like it's a teddy bear. But at the same time, I understand. And
now I see why they're trying to take our zins away.
It's been her the whole time. She's been endlessly writing Chuck Schumer.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I was waiting for this. But yeah, it's basically that. And yes, you tell me something about me.
You're perfect, and there's nothing. So how do you feel now?
It's alright.
Smart man.
What do you got, G? What's a pet peeve you have?
For Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
For lovers.
For lovers?
For lovers.
Lovers and friends.
G, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Did you felt in love once in your life?
No, he has no
anytime?
heart.
Oh, it's a good question. Have I ever felt love once in my life?
Fell in love.
At least.
Have you ever felt love even once in your cold dark heart?
At least.
Felt or fell?
I told you I had a chocolate-sized hole in my stomach when this thing began, and when first time I had a Ghirardelli,
no free shout.
salted caramel chocolate, I knew what love. I don't know if I know what love felt like, but I know what love tasted like.
All right.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I definitely was in love. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
The great Chaz Palminteri says you get 3 great ones.
And what happened when you fell in love? Like, what happened with your mind?
Go back to talking shit about him. What are you trying to pull me apart for? What do you mean what happened with my mind?
Yeah,
what do you mean?
Your mind is enough, is expanded that much that your life is not the same anymore. Like, you see something, I don't know, in another level.
I know what you mean. You're saying almost like, like certain like instances in your life that could like almost like expand your brain, where like one could be like having sex for the first time, or that could like kind of change your life. You know what I mean?
Or have a
like,
drug
whoa,
for the first time.
or
You
doing
know,
drugs
things that
or
open your mind.
killing somebody.
Killing somebody?
Killing somebody. That's
All right.
gonna expand your brain.
I would say the unfortunate truth is that when you first experience these things, you kind of just expect it, that this is just what it would be like with anybody. You don't necessarily appreciate the uniqueness of the connection you have with that particular person. You know, the idea of you don't know what you have until it's gone. But when you're first experiencing these things, it is very much true. It takes you 2 or 3 or 4 other relationships to then go back to that other relationship and be like, man, maybe the way he chewed wasn't so fucking bad. And I really just think love, there's lust. There's somebody that you see, and especially in the beginning where you're like, man, I just want to tear their clothes off nonstop, and that's lust. But the idea of love is patience to me. It's the idea that I will put up with something with you. I will be patient with you in ways that I would not be patient with other people. I will have grace and understanding for you that I won't have with other people. I will do things for you I won't do for other people. Like you told me to go to the airport at 12:30 and you got the flight wrong and it was 1:30, and instead of me being like, get a fucking Uber, I'll wait for you because I love you, right? And it's those little things. It's not romantic, it's not sexy, but to me that's what love is. I don't know. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Hey, wait. What about something that you do that pisses off Eric?
Nothing.
You're perfect?
I'm a perfect wife, perfect mother.
Just perfect women everywhere.
He's a lucky guy.
Wearing the baking the pies, wearing the
I do. The
next
other
Valentine's,
day,
next year on Valentine's
she can't
Day,
cook. Well, she can
the other day I made homemade waffles with an orange curd in 10 minutes before the kids had to go to school. My oldest had to go to school like that. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm just making homemade waffles with a beautiful orange curd. Would you like some? So yeah, he's a lucky guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before my coffee.
Yeah.
My coffee wasn't even brewed yet.
That's why he's a lucky guy. The orange curd.
You haven't had it. It's really good.
I don't even know what orange curd is.
It's like lemon curd, but with oranges instead of lemon.
You say curd. Is that like a cheese?
No, it's like a custard.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Delicious.
Well,
key lime waffles. Orange.
I go to the store and I buy him like these fancy chocolates because I'm thinking of him. Yeah, he's got it made.
Yeah, you want to hear
cook,
something?
I clean.
Want to hear something really cute? I got flowers for the first time on my birthday. I guess a couple weeks back. Someone decorated the room all up. It was really cute.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Gonna be your,
trying to bring a little
gonna be your day
into
one
this
day,
program.
okay?
All right, guys. This is Candice Weekly, the Valentine's Day episode. Wishing the best to you and your loved ones. Love you guys. Big kiss.